Hi, Shelly. How are you? How are you today?
Good, Miss Lisa. How are you?
Good. Saturday. I'm on vacation. I'm happy, so I'm doing well. How about you?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. Yeah.
Great. Thank
Yeah.
you for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me.
No problem. So, I wanted to do this video, the special one, because um, I noticed on my channel when I talk about specific topics that there are people who tune into them, and it looks like that that specific topics are resonating with them, and like topics about certain things that people don't normally talk about. Perhaps they're feeling certain things, but they're not communicating them. And so when I talk about those specific topics, people, it seems like more people tune into the discussion. So I wanted to do that here with you,
Okay.
and people can watch and they can know that it's okay to be vulnerable. It is not a sign of weakness, but actually a sign of strength. But before we do that, I need to get some tissue for a minute. So let's see. Do I have 1 moment?
You're fine.
Okay, I am back. Just some allergies today. But anyway, are you able to see me?
Yes.
Okay. So what I wanted to discuss today is about trauma. A lot of what I've noticed is that a lot of people are dealing with traumatic situations from the past, and when you don't heal those things, it affects every aspect of your life. And I'm talking from experience. So um, I want to talk about these things because some people are going through these things, but they can't talk about it, because some people can talk, other people keep things inside, and they could be really going through something. I had a friend who used to motivate me, and we used to talk. Used to I used to really be inspired by him, and I didn't know that he was in so much pain due to something illness that was taking place, and he took his life, and it just I don't know if I can say that here, but it just really affected me because perhaps it didn't have to happen that way. So you never know what people are going through. That's why it's always important to be kind to people, to listen. When I'm out and about, sometimes running errands, people come up to talk to me. I take the time out of my schedule to talk to them, to listen, because after experiencing that, I realized that it's important to 5 minutes, 10 minutes of my time to have a conversation with somebody who just comes over to me and talk, because you never know what people are going through. And I might be saving someone's life. And that's why I always talk about these things on my channel, because you can help save somebody else, and it also helps save you as well. Because when you help other people, especially when you're going through trials and tribulations, it helps you as well. So,
Yeah.
that being said, one of the things that I wanted to talk about today is about trauma and how it can affect relationships. So, one time, and this is difficult for me, but for some reason, I feel like someone needs to hear this because someone might be going through this, and they might not want to talk about it. But if they hear a video and see that somebody else has already gone through that and how I got through it, perhaps it can help somebody. So I had a situation a while back, right after losing my mom, not too long thereafter. And grief can make you make decisions that you normally wouldn't make. And I started talking to someone and seeing someone gradually and spending time and etc. And it got to a point where the person was not who they said they were. Um, and I got into, how do I say this, a situation where I this person was not. It's like a whole deception that took place that really was traumatic. It really brought on some real serious trauma because this person, just being in the middle of an intimate situation and finding out that this person is not who they are. They are a different person altogether. And that caused a lot of trauma in my life. Who can I talk to about this? What can I say? It was just the most horrific thing that could happen. And it reminds me of something, a guy who I used to work with a long time ago went through something like this. But when he shared his story with me, and he ended up doing something that got him locked up, he ended up, really. And I asked him because I couldn't understand why he went to that extreme. And he was telling me the trauma led him to that. And I didn't take up for him or anything like that because it was wrong that he got physical about this situation. But he told me the trauma was so dramatic. It was so affected him so bad. He just, you know, and he ended up paying the price for doing what he did. So I
Mhm.
didn't. I heard him and I listened to his story because I like to see people's perspective and things like that. And when he told me about this, I heard his story, but I never really understood it until it happened to me. And the feeling that I got behind finding out during an intimate moment that this person was not who they said they were was horrific. It was the worst thing, one of the worst things that could happen to my life. And that's when, shortly thereafter, I started therapy. On top of the grief that I went through during the shutdown with all these deaths and things happening, and then you make a decision to date, and this is, it was horrific. And then the gaslighting. What are you talking about? This is not what this is. Making me believe that I didn't see or what this was. And I'm being very careful with my words here because it was so devastating. And this was after 7 months of dating to find out something like this. And I said to myself, I know how this guy feel now, but I chose, and it was very difficult not to make the same decision that he made when he was in that situation. I chose to let it go. And that, quite honestly, is with everything that I had already been through with deaths and the shutdown, that really pushed me forward to my healing because it was so bad, Shelly, that it was to the point where I was asking God, why me? Why are all these things happening to me? First, all these deaths during a shutdown, my mother, my dog, one of my friends, every week somebody was leaving here, you know. A couple of weeks after that, two people in one week. And I'm like, this is too much. And after, going through all this, and then, really connecting with someone, you think that this is going to be it. And then, dealing with another situation that's going to bring on even more trauma. So I had to heal because all these things that was happening got me to the point where I was just angry with God, and I was saying, I don't deserve this. Why are you allowing all these things to happen and things happening to me? I don't deserve this. I don't, and the people who were there to support me, who were supposed to be there, were not there. I had a family member who I trusted and would talk to about this because this is not something that's easy to talk about. And that family member said to me, "You got the best of both worlds." What? What? Are you kidding? The best of what? This is trauma. So I realized I didn't have anybody in a physical to talk to. And everybody was, when they needed something from me, people were all over and around me. But when I needed something, just, sometimes you just need people to listen and be there and support. And I didn't have any of that. And I was angry with God for a long time. I was just, drinking a lot of wine and just every time I did that, just fighting with God all the time, saying all types of stuff. And then it got so bad to the point that I was just asking him to just let me go to sleep and not wake up. And that was very difficult. Never found myself that low before in life. Stuff happened, but never that low, never feeling to that. And I talk about some of these things, but not to this extent as I did in that video. I did the Dark Night of the Soul. And that's what I felt like I was going through because everything was hitting me once to the point where I felt less than zero. And it just, what it was, I had to learn lessons. I talk about that all the time, and I wasn't learning lessons. I was attracting narcissistic individuals, whether it was a relationship or a friendship or people or family or whatever. I was attracting all these narcissistic individuals just are there to take. They're never putting in anything. They just there to take from you. So you're being sucked dry from all different directions of narcissistic individuals. And I didn't want to see that because I'm a type of person is that I can, if something is broken, I can fix it. I had that attitude for a long time. If it's broken, I know how to fix it no matter what it is. And God had to show me you cannot. You're attracting people who are just takers, leeches. All of that stuff was going on in my life, and I would kept giving and over giving, and to the point where I was being sucked dry. So what I learned with these lessons is I had to be sat down to see what was really happening in my life. And I had to change some things. And looking at these things were hard, crying due to grief trigger moments, losing everything and just feeling so alone, not having anybody there. And I started to do the work because it was either do the healing work or it's like swim or drown, a situation of swimming or drowning. And I knew when I woke up the next day and I was still here that it was time to do the work. And doing healing work is not easy, Shelly, at all. Crying, being on my knees, crawling around like a dog, looking at situations. I needed to see things as they were and not an illusion of what I wanted it to be. See people as they are, see behind that mask that they're wearing. See the deception, see the gaslighting, all of it. See it for what it is. And I can't change a person or a situation. You can bring people to the water, you can't make them drink it. All you can do is change your perspective and how you deal with it. And I chose that I didn't want those type of people in my life anymore. And I had to work hard and it wasn't easy. Plenty of nights by myself. Like some people, when they're going through the healing process, they have a support system, of family or friends that they can call to listen to them when they're going through their grief or whatever it is. I didn't have that. I had God, but I didn't have a physical person that I can call and talk to and say, hey, this. And then when my dog died, it was just too much. And I just had to do the work. And we were in a shutdown when I started to do the healing. And it just felt like a cage to me because the only time that we could go out, remember when we could only go out to the supermarket and back? And in between somewhere, I was hitting the gym because I was so angry and I had to get it out. But the gym, I was allowed to do that. And it was weird because men would come around and watch me pump iron, and I didn't even know how much I was pumping because I was so full of anger and all this stuff happening. They would sit and watch, like, "Do you know how much you're pumping?" I don't, and then I go home and feel it later on. But I was just, the gym was an outlet for the pain and everything, music, and then just sitting in all of this. You got to sit in it. You got to see what you did and just changing some things. And when God allowed me to come out of this, and I think for until about 2023 is when things started to get better and I started to do the work. I started to do therapy. And my therapist, I was glad at that point because I had somebody to talk to. So at first, we would just look at each other because we would do these Zoom services. I mean, Zoom, um, you know, we would meet by Zoom and we're just staring at each other because I didn't have anything to say. And then after a while, we started to talk and I started to talk. And he would say, "Not a lot, set boundaries. Lisa, set boundaries. But this is happening. Why are they doing this? Why is this happening? Etc. Set boundaries." And I didn't know what that meant really, how to do that. So then we started talking about doing a pro and a con list. These people who are in your life, do a pro and con list. Well, the cons outweigh the pros. So that means that I'm overgiven. I'm doing too much because I'm getting breadcrumbs and bones. I'm not getting back much of anything. And so I started to set boundaries. Okay, I got to set boundaries here because I can't be an overgiver anymore. And they didn't like the boundaries, many of them. So they started jumping over them. And I had to reiterate again, I'm setting boundaries. We can't do this. And when it continued, I realized I had to cut people out of my life. And it was a whole lot of people. They were not there anyway, only when they wanted something. So I had to realize that I had to sit in that, cry, and I had to make changes. But what helped me the most was looking at my situation from a different mindset, a different perspective, not just looking at woe is me and being on the pity train, but knowing that I had to do the work to build myself up. And as I did that little by little, things started to get better. Then I started making vows to God on certain things that I would do, you know, no matter what, because God allowed me to still be here. Because I woke up the next day after saying that I started to really put in the work. And when I made those vows is when my life really changed for the better. Because every step I take, God take two and three behind me. And I'm like, no, that can't be. I still was being like, no, that, until he showed me irrefutable proof of what, because every time I do something, something else happened as I closed those doors. Because I'm showing him I don't want this kind of life anymore. I don't want the toxicity. I don't want any of this. And up until now, I learned how to self love and self care. And because of my self love, I do things now for my highest good. And one of the things that helped me a lot was music. Besides going to the gym, self care is music. The things that uplift our spirit, the gym, just taking time for us. So, what I did is I chose myself out of all the toxicity. I left everything else where it was and chose me, and then chose to heal all of these things. And little things that I like to do, like laughter, helps a lot, comedy shows. Sometimes I even go to a movie by myself to see something and I do things that uplift me. And then I try to do everything, minimize everything else that's toxic. And it has helped. It took a long time for me because I wasn't learning lessons. But once I learned them, I didn't have to repeat them, Shelly. I can close those doors, walk through new doors, um, meet people who really care about me, and well, everything behind the second door is so much better than that first door. And then changed my life for the better. And one of the vows that I made to God, that as I help myself, I want to help other people so that they're not in a place of just, depression and despair, which can lead to other things. So that's my story, one day at a time. But these things left me with scars, but I'm not ashamed of my scars. And the reason why is because I would never be who I am today if it wasn't for everything that I went through. I'm not, it wasn't fun and it wasn't easy, but I would never be who I am today, looking at things from a different perspective, doing things differently for my highest good. I would never do that. So what I'm saying here today, I hope this helps other people to see that they don't have to stay in a place of grief, despair, um, just changing some things around, doing therapy, having a therapist, because that's an outlet for the pain as well. These things will help, not overnight, but when you get the process started, and you stay on it, then things can change for the better, and they will see those changes. So that's how I heal my grief. And I still have grief days. I still have those moments, but for the most part things are better in my life, and I thank God every day for that. So Shelly, hearing all of this, what's your story? Tell me, uh your if you had any traumatic situations and how you yourself overcame them.
Oh, I've had a couple. Um, so I was born into trauma. My biological father beat my big brother with a belt, cracked his skull open. All four of us children got taken. I was adopted by a narcissistic, abusive mom, and let me see. We had the gang of girls chasing me around high school for all 4 years. That was fun. And then I just kept attracting people just like that because
Wow.
my because that's what it's what I came from. So that's what I was always thinking about. Therefore, that's what I attracted. And not only that, I do believe that I had certain things I needed to learn that I didn't learn in past lifetimes. And that's the way I think. That there's things that I just didn't learn in past lifetimes. And I decided I was going to come and clear up all my karmic debt in this lifetime. And I have to tell you, sometimes it sucks. But I've had a lot of things happen to me. Assaults, being physically assaulted in di- different ways in childhood, right up into adulthood, until I was about 35 when I said, That's it. I'm done. I'm not getting hit anymore. I knew what that looked like when someone was going to cycling up to hit me. It is a cycle of abuse. It's a cycle for the abuser too. I watched the cycles. I knew that the behavior, I knew these things. So I just made it a point not to be with people or around people who were going to put their hands on me. But that didn't stop me from attracting people who were verbally abusive and emotionally abusive, to the point where there was one relationship where I would beg him, will you just hit me, please? Because then I know I'm not nuts. The gaslighting, the gaslighting. He would do something in front of me. And I'd say, why did you do that? And he'd look at me in the face and go, I didn't do that. And I go, I just watched you do it. I didn't do that. And I learned to walk away from that. What I didn't learn was how to deal with the emotional crap that created within me. So I found outlets that were extremely unhealthy. And I knew they were unhealthy, but I did them anyway because that was my outlet. It worked for me for a long time until it didn't. And then I got myself together. So after I got myself together. I'd been away from the last long-term relationship. Um, I'd been out of that relationship for, a few years. 2017, I got myself together. And then COVID, the pandemic hit it in 2020. So I had actually started my healing process around 2018. And my healing, my issues were coming up through PTSD episodes. And I have the diagnosis, and I'd been in and out of therapy for years. And I actually tried therapy around COVID time. And about 3 weeks into it, I was like, I know all this stuff. This is a waste of everybody's time. I just needed a reminder, you know? So now I don't call on the therapist. I don't waste anybody's time. I research and review what I need to do, you know, the what do you call it? The therapeutic things that I did in therapy that actually worked for me, because not that many things really worked for me in therapy. It actually made it worse, to be honest with you. So anywho, so I started with the back-to-back PTSD episodes about 2018. And I mean back-to-back every day, all day. And I got to the point where I was like, I don't want to be here anymore. I just can't do this. I can't do it. Obviously, because it doesn't stop. It never ends. So I begged my higher power to help me. I said, show me. You know, just like I begged for help to get myself together. I was given that gift. So what I was really looking for was, and I love this word, I was looking for grace. Not just from a higher power, but grace from within myself. So higher power says to me, why don't you try looking those traumas right in the eyeball? Look at them right in the face. Feel what you're feeling, accept that you're feeling it. And as soon as I started to do that, and not an hour later, that particular trauma was dealt with. And here comes the next one. And this went on for 3 years. So I've been working on my trauma. I've been healing it. And we call it the dark night of the soul, as you've done a video about that. And we call that the dark night of the soul. That's what that is pulling up that crap that's traumatized us, that's wounded us, pulling it up and allowing ourselves to look at it. Because if we don't, we're doomed to keep repeating the same mistakes and keep feeling the exact same way. And I refuse to move backwards. I'm trying to move forwards. I'm not trying to backtrack. Sometimes I do backtrack. I'm a human being. I feel that we're all perfectly imperfect. We're not meant to be perfect, whatever that means. I don't think that actually even exists. I don't think perfection even exists, to be honest with you. But I am a human being, and I'm going to have thoughts and feelings and make mistakes. And one time, and this was traumatizing too. My biological sister got angry, and she looked at me and she said, "Are you having a feeling? Go see a shrink." And I was like devastated. And I looked at her, I said, did you just tell me I'm not allowed to have feelings? So needless to say, there's something I walked away. I walked away from that situation and that person. I don't speak to any of my adoptive family except for my sister, and who was my parents' biological child. And I don't speak to her that much because she's dealing with the grief of her husband, the loss of her husband. And she's just really, it's not even struggling. It's like she can't move forward. So we chat every now and then. But there's been friends and, the little group of people I hang around with that friends that I've completely walked away from because they were toxic, because they'd offer to do me a favor and I would say, no, thank you. And they would insist. Finally, I'd say, okay. And then they would complain that they were doing me a favor.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah. So I've walked away from people like that. I've walked away from, I've walked away from friends. Not that I don't really have that many friends, and I'm okay with that. I prefer my peace. But I've walked away.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Peace.
I've walked away from family and friends, and it's okay. I'm not tied. I'm blood related to some people, maybe, but I'm not tied at the hip to those people. There is nothing written in a book that says Shelly has to interact with her family members. There's nothing written in a book that says that. That's a societal view. Society says that. And not for
Absolutely. I feel the same way.
my experience is that society is full of crap. It doesn't really know what it's talking about, because what comes out of society is based on the things we've been taught that are based on fear.
Yeah. I understand that very well.
Well, I'm not listening to society. And again, as an Aquarius, I don't conform well anyway. And I think, I take what I leave or what I need, and I leave the rest. It's as simple as that, from anybody and in any situation. So the point is, the question is, at this point, and after, now I can't do the math, but after doing what, 7, 8 years worth of healing, because I don't have PTSD episodes anymore.
That's great. That's
Well,
good
yeah,
news.
I learned to look it in the eyeball, and I also learned to tell myself, Shelly, you're not there anymore. Look around. Where are you? Ground yourself. Where are you? 5 things I can see, 5 things I can hear. Ground you. Where are you right now? And to me, everyone is having a hard time right now. I don't care if they're rich, poor, what shade of skin they have. I don't care who it is. Everybody's having a hard time right now. So
Yeah,
what
I
what,
noticed.
what are we going to do with that? Well, me personally, I'm gonna do my best to live in the moment. What am I doing right now that I need to be doing? I'm going to make a list of things I might need to be doing. And if I get to all of them, I do. If I don't, I don't. Oh, well, that stuff will still be there. I don't have anyone anymore standing behind me saying, you better do this right now. You better do that right now. The dishes need to be washed every night. The laundry needs to be done every day. I don't have anyone standing over me doing that anymore.
I hear that.
And that
I
is one of the
definitely hear
hardest.
that.
And I still struggle with that sometimes, because I have to really ask myself, okay, Shelly, why is it so important for you to do that specific thing right this minute? And the answer is always, there is no reason, because I can answer to me. I can't fill someone else's cup if mine is empty.
Right. Absolutely, Shelly.
I I do practice self-care. This coming Wednesday is no computer day. I do that every couple of months. I just don't get on the computer. I'm going to go see the grandbaby. I haven't been able to because I was sick and I don't want to make her sick. Well, I'm
Right.
on Wednesday, and God's be damned, I'm going. But
I hear
I do that in music. I'll get my spirit team will tell me, hey, they'll play the song over and over and over in my head. And I have to, they're like, and that's their hint. You need to listen to your music. I have a very
music is a
eclectic.
healing source.
Yes, it is.
Absolutely.
So I did that today. I put my
That's
headphones in,
that's healing. That
and
is a form of self-healing.
I feel better, because I can get to the brink of, like, I'm struggling with depression a little bit. Um, well, a lot more than I want to. I actually have been considering taking steps to take care of it. But um, Spirit Team's been telling me to hold off on that for a minute,
I mean,
because maybe
music
there's
will
something.
heal you, and it'll change your mood. It'll uplift your spirit.
Yeah, because there's maybe the Spirit Team says maybe there's something coming that just isn't there yet, that's going to work, that's going to get you through it, that's going to make it stop. Because I'm not spending the rest of my life depressed. I refuse.
And all of this uncertainty that's going on in the world today, if you stay tuned into that toxicity, you will be in a state of depression. So the more you can minimize that, the better it is for you. And put music or laughter, which is also the best medicine, watch something like comedy shows. And when I am on YouTube, I'm watching comedy shows, mostly listening to music, and just, do things that uplift your spirit.
Yeah.
Thing,
Yeah.
Shelly, is forgive yourself. One of the things,
Exactly.
yeah, not to
Because
cut you off, but that's
no,
so important.
not for nothing, the stuff that happened to me wasn't my fault.
Exactly.
Other people did that to me. I was a child. So when things happen to a child, that's not their fault. We don't take responsibility for things that happen to us when we're children.
Or nor as an adult, if someone is coming against you without a justifiable cause,
True.
and it to make you feel, less than. It's important to forgive yourself. And when you forgive yourself, like I tell people, this is important that I'm sharing, not to cut you off, but there was someone who is a friend that I talked to, and she had a hard time forgiving to the point of being bitter. And I'm saying, if you're bitter and you stay in that energy, the person who hurt you and who wronged you, they get to keep your power. They take your power and they go off and they live their best life while you're broken down, feeling miserable and bitter. Take back your power, snatch back your power. And then
Oh,
when you do that, then you can live your best life. Forgive. Forgiveness is not for them, Shelly. The forgiveness is for you so that you can move on. And that's what the misunderstanding was there, is that I forgive them for what? And she was going on, no, it's not for them so you can reconcile or do whatever. It's so that you can take your power back and you move on and live your best life. And whatever they do, that's on them. Their karma will come to them, but you're over here living your best life. And that was the hardest part for me, is to just forgive. And when I learned that lesson, those doors got closed, and I don't repeat it, because the same lesson will come back around, different characters, but the same scenario, until you learn it. Once you learn it, and say, I'm going to live my life the best that I can no matter what, then things will change for the better, and you don't have to stay in that dark energy and that depression and negativity. You live your life. You don't know what door is going to open and how things may unravel, but you keep moving forward. And as those doors close and you go over here, what I notice, and those new doors get open, there's good things behind it, better things, better situations, but you can't see those better situations if you stuck in a bitterness or revenge. I'm gonna get him or her back. Yeah, I'm gonna make sure this happened, that happened. You know, then there may be people over here who want your attention, who want to be your friend. Good people in your life, but you're so busy. And I'm just using you as a, not you, but you know what I mean, that the you don't see those good people because you're blinded by the bitterness and the revenge. And then you have to just leave that to karma, as I say, while you live your best life and leave. What I do is close those doors so that I don't have to repeat the lesson, live my best life, laughter. I do still have my days of trigger, grief, and whatever. We're human, we're all going to have that, but we don't stay stuck in it, is what's important. Live your life for the best. You have any other comments?
just a real quick one. So I have this image uh, of I think in pictures. So I have this image in my head where, and not now, but before, there's different sizes of cages, right? And I start out in the back, and the door opens, but I'm too afraid to move into the next, or the bigger cage, the next one. And that keeps happening over and over and over. But every time I would resolve a hurt or a traumatic event within myself, I could move on to the next cage, the bigger cage. The hardest part sometimes is the last cage, and it's really more like a jail cell. That door's open. Sometimes it is very difficult to walk out of that cage, that prison. It's hard to walk out of that jail cell. And sometimes I'll backtrack and go back in it. But that door is always open because I've done the work. Not all the work. We're never done. We're never done with the work.
Right. Absolutely. Healing is ongoing.
Exactly. But sometimes I choose to go back into the jail cell. And when I do that, I can see in my mind, I can see that the door is open. And sometimes I don't know how to walk back out of it. You know what I mean?
I get it.
But for me, and this is just me because everybody's not spiritual, but for me, that's when I need to ask for help. Because I have maybe I have one person I can talk to, Lisa. I have one person I can talk to because I didn't have the support either. People
One
thought,
is better than none.
right,
Yeah.
right. But I don't never had the support of another human being. And if there was support, that they wanted something in return.
Yeah, I lived that all
Right.
my life.
So for me, it's difficult for me to ask for help because I've had to do this myself. There were zero people to be helpful to me. And I'm not whining, I'm just stating facts. Okay. These days, I'm okay with that. But, I'm learning to open myself up to other human beings. That's a big step for me. That's me stepping out of that jail cell.
Yeah. I hear that. I understand because you don't know what to expect. And that's the hard part for me. I think you're doing better with that than I am because I have to build myself up to that because the trust of trusting other people is where, yeah, the healing I'm still doing because of so much betrayal. When you go through that betrayal and you see, the hardest part for me is the individuals who did the betrayal. Just seeing that, and but as you keep doing the work, like we're not perfect. We're gonna have days we get up, we do the work. We have days where we just feel like going back to bed, a do over. Remember the movie with Bill Murray? What is it called?
Groundhog Day.
Huh?
Groundhog Day.
Yes. I watched that and he kept getting a do over. He wake up again in the same scenario. And I didn't want that. So I work hard to get out of that because otherwise you repeat in cycles. And when you repeat them, it's not the same. It gets worse and worse and worse. And I'm like, it's like the walls closing in like this. And I said, I have to get off this ride. It's not healthy. But peace is better. Having peace is, oh wow, peace and self-love. But what I can tell you is that when that other door opens up, you know, in my case, I can speak from my own experience, is that God has been bringing better situations into my life. Because I was at the point where I thought I didn't deserve anything because of all these trials and tribulations and this dark night of the soul, which I didn't understand back then as I was going through it. But, as those doors closed, it was like, phew, I don't have to deal with the situation anymore. Now, I felt like Job, Job in the Bible, like when his wife told him, curse God and die. That's how bad things were, like that. And it was like no getting out of that, and I had to go through that to see that I had to change some things for the better. You can't change people, Shelly. You can't change how they are and what they do, but you can change how you respond to it, and you can change your mindset. And what I look at now and what came out of that is that these people have broken mindsets, and they stay in that they're stagnated in it. But I don't have to stay there with them. I chose to heal, to grow so that I can evolve. And then, to help other people, that if I can do this with no physical support system but God Himself, by myself in a physical, other people can do it because this is not easy. Otherwise, I say everybody would do it. But if I can do it, it's going to take time. But I kept going. And the key factor was to be persistent, to persevere through it and not give up. And now I'm at a space where, okay, I'm okay with being alone at times, you know? It doesn't mean you can be alone and not be lonely.
Right.
That's where I'm at. You know, I don't need to have 1,000 people around me to make me feel good about myself. When you love yourself, not be in love with yourself, but to love yourself, you see things differently. You see things, okay, that's not for my highest good, so I'm not going over there. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to hang out over there because I know this is not for my highest good. And you start to see that and you start to make better choices and decisions in your life. And that's what, you know, this channel is about, is to help people. None of us are perfect. It's okay to be vulnerable because it's not a sign of weakness. I was taught that all my life, you know. Stop crying. Stop doing that. You know, man up, you know. You know, that kind of attitude. And one of the worst things is that all my life I was taught, I'm pretty sure a lot of people listening probably go through this, what happens in this house stays in this house kind of attitude. So if what happens in this house stays in this house, then nobody's healing from it because it
Right.
stays stuck within. And then you carry that baggage. I won't call it baggage, but luggage. You take that into your relationships, whether it's a romantic one, friendship, family, all that toxicity go right with you, packed in a luggage, you know, suitcase. And you never heal it because people don't talk about it. Oh, that's the elephant in the room, but we're not going to talk about that. We're going to leave that right over there. So the elephant grows bigger and bigger until there's no room for nobody else in that room. And people don't understand that. And but when you start to see things for what they are and behind the mask, then you you can make decisions, better decisions for your life. Peace is so much better than the toxicity.
Yeah.
So before we end this session today, is final words that you want to say about, you know, the healing and
Uh, just one word. Well, a couple of words. Stop having expectations of other people that they will treat you the way that you treat them.
do unto others as you want done
Do
to
unto
you.
others, but don't expect them to do it back to you. When I stopped having expectations, because I'm going to tell you, people do not behave the way I want them to. When
That's
I
for
stopped
sure.
having expectations of other people, when I stopped expecting someone to give me the respect I was giving them, my life got a lot easier. I'm not, I'm cautious. I'm not paranoid, but I'm cautious, but I don't expect people to treat me with respect because everyone's not in the same space. That's all.
Right. But you know, with me in my case, even though that might be the case, um, when people disrespect me, I make it a point that we're not doing this because I don't accept disrespect because I see it as a form of abuse. And I've gone through enough abuse my whole lifetime. So I would reiterate how important the respect is. It's a two-way street. And if it continues, then I do the I don't know you, I don't see you. You know, I just don't respond to it until that person understands that, you know, respect is very important, and that the disrespect is abusive, and that's something that I won't tolerate anymore. But to sum all of this up, anyone who's listening, if you're going through anything, because I know everybody don't talk about what they're going through and what's happening, it's so important to do the work to heal. And people heal in different ways. And some ways that people heal maybe through music. Some people heal by the outlet of talking to a grief therapist, you know, or any kind of therapist that's going to help you. People heal other ways by just looking at things from a different perspective. And once you look at things from a different perspective, then you make decisions accordingly. Do things that's going to uplift your spirit and not tear it down. That's the message today, everyone. Please subscribe to the channel so that you can know when I'm on, because I don't, have a specific time. But once you subscribe, you will always get a notification as to when I am here. And let's thank Shelly for being here today and sharing her experiences today. Thank you, Shelly, so much for being here today. And
Thanks for having me.
you're so welcome. Thank you again. This is Lisa shedding love and light. Everyone, I will see you next week. Have a great day.